Welcome to Empowering Pastors. We're glad that you're here today. We know that God's got a great word for you, for your leadership skill sets, as well as the capability of developing more. I want to welcome all those who are with us from the New Jersey ministry we just did with the pastors. Thank you all for watching. I know today is going to challenge you, but I think it's also a tad bit aggressive in the aspect of being able to confront us, because I want to talk a little bit about passion today. And passion is unique because passion is something that is intense in your life. The problem is that we're all passionate over something, but easily lose passion for some things. I have found that many times as leaders, we are passionate towards things, and then after a period of time, our passion diminishes. The problem with passion diminishing is that it fully affects everything that we say and do while we're doing ministry. Now, if you have a company and you lose passion for your company, it's going to slowly dwindle away because that passion is always conveyed to other people. So you can have the most highly educated individual in the world on a topic and still never see them accomplish anything. Why? Because if there's no passion behind it, then there is no magnetism behind it. Where there's no magnetization because of desire and passion, then people are not going to follow you. The exact definition of passion is an intense desire or enthusiasm about something. So passion is what drives you, what gets you out of bed, where no one has to pay you. You get out of bed even if you're not getting paid because you're passionate about something. When that is not there, then you have an issue and I have an issue in our leadership capability. Why? Well, because if you're not going to be passionate about or intensely desirous about what you're doing, then why would you expect anybody else to want to follow that? You can be educated, you can be skilled, you can have organizational structure around it, but without the whoosh, the fire behind what you're doing, then people are not going to be interested. So there's a need to really adjust ourselves. And I don't believe this is a one-time adjustment. I believe this is something that we always have to confront in our lives, because it is actually so simple to lose your passion. It's so simple to digress. It's very simple to be diverted from really what should be driving you. So a great quote, the people who are passionate about their work don't do it for the sake of doing stuff. They aren't the types who sit in their office and try to look busy until 5 p.m. They're driven by curiosity and the motivation to learn about the world around them. So a passionate person, they don't have to fake work it. You don't have to wonder about results. You're going to get results because they're driven by the ability to do what they're doing. Another great quote, real passion provides inspiration that's much deeper than cheerleading or a temporary emotional high. When leaders are truly passionate, people feel included in the leader's commitment, part of making important things happen. That's satisfying a very deep level, and it lasts. So a person without that flame, the fire in their spirit to accomplish things, literally somebody might join your team or get around you for a little bit, but because that passion is no longer what's really motivating you, it's a job or accomplishing a task, they are going to start losing interest in your ministry. They're going to lose interest in your company. They're going to lose interest following you. Why? Because they know they're not going anywhere because you're not either. Without passion, you can't go anywhere. Without passion for what you're doing, you are going to be stymied. You might have a position, you might have a company, you might have opportunity, but you'll never fulfill anything with long term because you cannot keep people following you if your passion is not driving you. So passion is something that's consistent and constant, that you have to keep refiring and that you have to keep focused upon. And then when you lose passion or truly it is subsided in your life, it is It is honorable to no longer remain in that because you cannot sustain it. We got a question. Oh, they'll be over with the microphone soon. Guys, we have questions. I want to remind you to have a microphone ready. Thank you. So Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18 is the biblical principle. And by the way, we believe in Bible. And it says this, where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Over on this side, thank you. Ken.
So my thing was more of a comment on the passion, because you said that you have to get out if you're not passionate or whatever. So something I found is that even if I didn't like something I was doing, which listen, you ride motorcycles, you do that enough, you won't like it. Anything you do, I mean, unless you're like some kind of like really unique individual that's just like eccentric.
Right.
Eventually, you're not going to really like what you're doing because you get burned out.
Correct.
So the thing that I for myself personally found that keeps my passion is like you have to keep working on goals. And so then even when the stuff that you hate doing, you know that that's a means to the ends, and you can even get passionate about that. And then so you got to work at staying passionate.
That's the key. You have to work at staying passionate. I mean, if you like everything you do with your job, then you're kind of messed up. I don't like paperwork, but you got to do paperwork. There's just stuff you have to do that you're not going to be passionate, but you are passionate over the conclusive desire that you have for that drive that's in your heart. I get concerned when I start seeing the loss of passion because I recognize that, first of all, you are still passionate about something. Everybody's passionate about something, even if it's sleep. I had a kid at Bible college. The kid could sleep 18 hours. And he was so proud that he could sleep 18 hours. He called it power sleeping. Hey, how many hours you sleep today? I almost hit 18 one time. I hit 20 hours sleep. He was so proud that he hit 20 hours sleep. That was his passion. He was passionate about that. That's what he did for Bible school. He was passionate about sleeping. Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. You've got to ask yourself a question. I'd like you to do that now, actually, if you have the opportunity. I want you to ask yourself, what really is your passion? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And if you have children, and I'm not saying your kids get you up. I'm talking, but what drives you? What is passionate to you that you cannot wait to get out of bed? Even if you weren't getting paid, you'd be doing something alongside of this because it's burning in your heart. And if you have nothing, that's really scary. That means you have no targets in your life. That means you are genuinely lost. But everybody has some level of passion. What is that thing that gets you out of bed? What is that thing that puts the fire in your heart? The other night when I spoke in Jersey, the other day I spoke in Jersey, I was so elated. I was so excited because it thrills me to be able to speak to leaders. When I speak to people and at the church and stuff, I'm preaching at churches, then I'm preaching to those people. But when I'm speaking to leaders, I'm not only speaking to them, but I'm speaking to all their leaders. Man, that just fires me up. When I get done, I am so high. When I get done preaching the word, I'm so high. And I'm passionate about what I do when I'm speaking and sharing and teaching and training. I love it. But you know something? If you have nothing that does that for you, you might actually be depressed. And you might actually need to get prayed for. Maybe get down on your face and ask God to rekindle something in your heart. Because without a passion, you literally cannot accomplish anything in your life. Now, I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of folk, they're not passionate about anything. What a scary spot that is. That you can fulfill an entire lifespan and accomplish nothing for goals. So we've got to go back and we've got to evaluate ourselves. We've got to keep reminding ourselves. We've got to keep reigniting ourselves. Because at times you get so overwhelmed, as Brother Ken said, you can actually burn out a little bit on that flow. But you see, when you're tethered to the Holy Spirit, when you're tethered to God, and this is about ministry or about your call in life, and there are folks that are called to gain wealth so they can fund the kingdom of God. That's their call. That's their ministry. And whatever that it is in your life, you've got to make sure that you do not lose the fire that's shut up in your bones. So vision is everything. Without a vision, the people perish. That means you have no goals. If you have no goals to accomplish, you're in trouble. If you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. If you have no destination and you start walking down the road, where are you going? Nowhere. If you have a goal to get somewhere, but you get tired halfway through, the word is halfway through, and you turn around and go back home, you could have taken that other halfway and gotten to the rest of the way if you would have stirred your passion. So this is a consistent factor that you and I aren't going to revisit just once. This is something we constantly have to revisit because it's easy to degenerate in our passion, degenerate in our vision because of the multiplicities of environments and the multiplicity of problems that come via our way. And we have to make sure that we stay focal, or else we are going to get so broad. Come on now, we can all talk about trees. If you grab a pine tree, pine trees' roots are shallow. They don't go deep. They get tall, but when the wind blows, man, sometimes they literally just fold over. But if you get an oak tree, the roots are deep and they go tethered deep, and you'll find most of the time those are the ones that are on top of the mountain that are getting ravaged, but they're not being moved. Why? Because their root system is strong. This is where our passion has to be. Our passion must be laden in Christ. Our passion must be laden in our purpose. It must be laden. That means tethered to our goal and our purposes. But with no goal, you're in trouble. So what is your goal in life? Where are you going? Does your ministry have at least some goal you're aiming at? When we started his Tabernacle Family Church, the goal was 1% of our community, which was 90,000 people. Excuse me, it was, yeah. So we were believing 1%, 900. That was the goal. I remember when we crested it, it was like, well, I got to have another goal. I accomplished it, now I got to aim higher. And my passion went higher. So there's a necessity not just to have a vision once, but especially if you are truly a passionate person, you're going to get people following you and you're going to be able to move forward to accomplish that task. Then you have to reevaluate again and say, now where are we going? What's the next level that we want to be at so that we can continue to climb? Decline is not your friend. Climb is your friend. But you can't climb if you lose the passion of your heart. This is where people backslide. It's where people walk away from Christ. You can have all the Bible. I have Bible college friends, kids I went to Bible college with, that today are no longer born again. They're serving the world. How is that possible? I remember their hands raised. I remember them fasting. I remember them crying out to God on the altar. I remember them seeking Jesus. I remember them pushing people and being involved in ministry. And what? All these years later, now they don't even serve God? Well, why is that? Because they lost their passion. And I don't think that the term losing your passion is actually valid. I believe it's desert. It's deserting your passion. It's not feeding your passion. It's not staying focal on your passion. You will not stay passionate on accident. It is something that has to be tended. When you don't tend your passion, then you go from a massive fire that's burning and keeping people warm and giving light to those that are around you. and will slowly dwindle down to a small little fester of coals. And then if you don't start throwing more wood, if you don't start throwing more wood on it, then those embers get dark. Then after a while, they go out. It might still be warm, but it's not hot. And no one's coming to your fire to see anything because he can't see. And no one's coming to get warm because they can't get warm. When that happens, you know you're starting to lose followers. And a leader without followers, come on now, we all know the old statement, a leader without followers is just going for a walk. And you've got to make decisions in your heart that this has to be tended. You have to refocus yourself. Passion is what drives you. No one has to coax me out of bed on a morning. I get up, getting ready to rock and roll, let's go. People need to be saved. Body of Christ needs to be shored up. I need to make sure I'm teaching. I need to make sure I'm doing God's will for my life. That's why I get out of bed. I don't have to wonder why I got out of bed. I know why I get out of bed. And I'm excited to get out of bed after 35 years of full-time ministry. It's not always that way. Sometimes I got to kick myself out of bed. It's rare, very rare. But it's because I've tended it. And my relationship with Jesus, I tend my relationship with Jesus. I spend time with him in prayer. I spend time in his word. I spend time giving out. Because if you only take in and you never give out, then you cannot keep the fire burning. You smother it. So these are principles when you're talking about passion that have to be constantly brought back to our face, or else we're going to slowly slide into a delusion and believe that we're okay, yet everyone is looking at us and saying, what are you doing? It amazes me that we are our greatest deceiver, not the devil. So there are three main boulders that set the foundation of leadership. Number one, passion. Number two, vision. Number three, mission. That passion is the fire that's in your bones. It's that, listen now, I don't even mind missing a few meals because I've got to get this done. I don't need an alarm clock to get up in the morning. I can't wait to get up in the morning. I don't know, how many of you have thoughts and passion brewing in your head before you get out of bed? Man, I have things just stirring in my head. When I get out of bed, sometimes I have answers. I went to bed not sure what to do. I get up the next morning and I've got the answers because my brain's been brewing all night long on the passion that's driving my heart. The next is vision. Vision is that end goal, that direction, where you're heading. So you can have passion, but passion without direction means you're running somewhere, but you're just not sure where you're going. Paul had this, and we see it in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, 16 through 18. And when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, since I am compelled to preach. Woe to me if I preach not the gospel. If I preach voluntarily, I have a reward. If not voluntary, I am simply discharged the trust committed to me. And then what then is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel, I may offer it free of charge, so not to make full use of my rights as a preacher of the gospel. Paul was driven to preach. How do we know that? Because you know what drives you when persecution comes. When adversity comes your way, it actually shows where and what level your passion is. If you're just a part-time passionate person, then when trouble comes, you're backing out or moving away. Why? Well, because it's not worth that much to you. True vision, true passion demands persecution. Because people can't understand why you're so passionate. It drives some people nuts. What's wrong with you? You're a Jesus freak? Yes, exactly. I am a Jesus freak. Why? Because I love him. He's my passion. He's my eternity. He's my reason. He's my breath. Ministry? Come on now. Pastor, you can make more money outside of the ministry. Absolutely I can. I know I can make more money outside of the ministry. That's not a problem. But my passion is not money. My passion is seeing people's lives changed. So what is your passion? So you can have passion, but if you have no vision, then you cannot accomplish anything because you have no direction. And then your mission. Your mission is how I'm gonna get it done. So you have your passion, that's birthed in your heart. Number two, you have the vision. You have your end goal result that you're after. And number three is, how in the world am I gonna make this happen? These are the three boulders of the foundation of making sure that you're gonna fulfill a life that when you look back, you're not gonna have regret or wonder why I wandered for my entire life. And people wander all the time. I had people tell me they worked and they just retired their job and they were glad they retired because they hated their job for all the 20 plus years they worked there. What a horrible life. You worked a job for money for over 20 years and you hated every moment of it. You didn't want to go to work. You just got a paycheck to suffice. What a horrible life. Or I've seen people, they are passionate, they've got vision, but they never do anything with it. I knew a man, he came to me one day and he goes, I have an invention. I said, what's the invention? He goes, scratch and sniff pizza stickers that you put in the paper and people will scratch them, sniff them, and then they'll order a pizza. I said, that is brilliant. He had the passion for it. He had the vision for it. But he had no mission. And he let it lie for 3 years, and then boom, guess what we saw in the newspaper? Somebody did it. He lost because he didn't have the mission. If you don't have all three boulders, you have no foundation. You've got to make sure that you're passionate. You've got to make sure that you have an end time goal. You have to make sure that now you have the ABCs involved in this. How am I going to make this vision happen? It's not enough to dream. Dreams are beautiful. But without a mission, without how to, you're never, ever, ever going to go anywhere. And that's where a lot of folks are. When you have passion for what you do, you have an energy about you that people are drawn to, and it makes you stand out. I think one of the greatest deceivers is us in that aspect. We got a job, we do what we do, but there's no passion, and there's something wrong with the people because they're not responding. No, it's called mojo. What is in comes out. You can only fake it so long. And if you have no passion, it's coming out. If you have no real goal, it's coming out. And if you have no mission, you have no steps in how you're going to accomplish this, flying by the seat of your britches don't work. If you're going to be successful, you cannot be a last-minute individual. You must be somebody that has the building blocks and must have somebody that in your life, whether if it's you're administrative or you're not administrative, you've got to surround yourself with the people who can make the vision happen. It is not accidental. And so one of the challenges is a lot of people, they have the passion, they have the vision, but they don't know how to put the building blocks together. Well, then get around people that do. If you struggle with administration, find somebody administrative. But if you've lost your passion, you've put yourself in a position of demise. People will enjoy working with you and you will create an enjoyable environment where people can look forward to coming into and working and being part of the organization because of the vision for the future. I told the story before, but I remember sitting in my office and I was doing culture, talking about culture, and I remember asking my whole staff, would you want your children to work here? And the only one who said yes was my son. Everybody else said no. We would not allow our children to work in this church. I was mad. I was getting ready to fire everybody but my son. I figured you should be blessing God. You're getting paid to do the ministry. No, the problem was me. I was not creating an environment that was conducive. I was not creating because my passion was so driven, but I was bad with building blocks. I did not have those 3 boulders. And I've worked really hard. Pastor Jan's a witness. He was in that room. I didn't fire him. But I've worked really hard, and I think that we have an environment now that mostly is positive to where people would want to work here. Here's some homework for you. Are you ready with homework? This will only work if you have departments or you have a company. I want you to ask 5 people to be honest of whether or not they like the environment you have them working in as their leader. The problem with this, I need them to be honest with you. So you need to tell them, I want you to be brutally honest with me. Don't hold back. You've got to be willing not to be offended when they do this. Now, if you only go to those that are drunk with your leadership ability, then that's, again, self-delusional. You need to go to people that will be honest with you. And there are people that are working in your departments, in your ministry, in your company that will be honest with you. I loved that show, Undercover Boss. I loved watching it because it was interesting. They would go in there and they thought they had everything in the bucket. And then they got in there and realized no one even knew them. No one liked them. No one liked their job. Or the managers were nasty. I loved watching that show. I asked people about me and realized it was not positive. And I had to change. As a leader, you must be not only passionate about the goal, but you personally must be willing and passionate to change you to meet the need of the people. It doesn't mean you're a people pleaser, but it means there has to be change in us, because as the company metamorphosizes, as the ministry metamorphosizes, we have to be the people that are gonna bring the passionate change to us, and they'll follow. Remember, as a leader, they're following you. So if you're not changing, they're not changing. And what got you here won't always get you there. So, the passionate people are the ones who are willing to take the risks and pay the price. Remember, Peter was passionate. He was not altogether brilliant. Foot-mouth disease was relative to his life. But he was so passionate about Jesus that he refused to be crucified the same way. He got crucified upside down. That's passion. The passionate people push the rest of the team forward to reach the desired goal. And you know, passion, leadership, it parallels marriage. If you've been married any period of time, when you're dating, it's wow, glory to God, the best thing in the world. Everything is beautiful. Man, it's gorgeous. You just love it. You wake up thinking about them. You go to sleep thinking about them. And you euphoricize them. They're perfect. Everything is amazing. And then you're married for a little bit and you realize they have issues. They have issues. Yeah, you don't say it about yourself. Wow! And then you ask yourself that brilliant question, what in the world did I get myself into? Every great marriage, they're gonna come to that question. It's because passion seems to wane because reality comes upon you. But the passion is what makes the reality move and brings resolution and answers and drives for greater. Just in your leadership skills, man, that's real. When you open a company, and Brother Ken can tell you, when you open a company, it's exciting and you get everything renovated and you move in and then, oh my goodness. You open a church and you're excited and people are getting saved and lives are being transformed, and then you realize, wow, it's a lot of work to pastor people. That's life. But what brings you out of the trouble is your passion, your vision, and your mission. I know how to get where I'm going. Do you remember when we had that tent out before we moved into this building? We were in a tent for like a month and a half. And in that month and a half, it was the month of August into September. It was 6 weeks. It was so hot. People were passing out under the tent. We lost 100 people in a month and a half. And someone came up to me and said, Pastor, we've lost 100 people. I said, I understand. Some will come back when we get into the building. But I said, even if they don't, we didn't get the 100 people on accident, so replenishing them is not a problem. I understood the mission. So passion, vision, and mission are your building blocks. If you had to write down right now what you are most passionate about, what would that be? What drives you? What excites you? When you get done, it's just like, wow, I love that. And if it's not what you're doing, then you got to ask yourself a question, what am I doing? And it's not that you're always going to, like marriage, you're not always going to be on that high, but it should still be getting you out of bed. So, how do you keep it going? How do you keep it rekindled? First of all, you got to recognize your calling. Like I said, I love communicating. I love building people. I love building God's kingdom. When I get done doing that, I'm just as happy can be. I told Terry when we got into the vehicle on Saturday morning, after teaching to 65 pastors, I was so high. I said, by about an hour and a half, I'll be coming down and we're gonna need to stop for a coffee. That just fuels me. Preaching on Sunday, watching all the people come to the altar to get healed in their hearts and their minds and have their brokenheartedness restored. Man, I left on Sunday, yes. But what is your yes? Maybe it used to drive you and now you drive it. You need to get it back. When you have to crawl out of bed, convincing yourself to do it, there's a problem. You want to know why it's a problem? Because you will never have vision of direction. And you'll never have the building blocks put together because it's too much work. And then you'll just keep what you're doing because that's what you're doing. Do you know most pastors will stay in the ministry their whole life, have tiny, minute churches, not do much. But the only reason they did that is because they did not want to become an insurance salesman or a car salesman. That most pastors have lost their passion, aren't doing the will of God, but their only alternative is to go into the secular world and sell cars or sell insurance, and they don't want to do that, so they'll still do ministry, and their church does nothing, and when it died, the community didn't even know they were there. What an atrocity. That does not lay on the foothold of God, on the footprint of God. That is us. And we've got to constantly rekindle. Why are you doing what you're doing? Number two, you've got to have some personal integrity. If you're not willing to give 110% at what you're doing, then your fire's out or going down. 110. You're not working for a human, you're working for God. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might is unto the Lord. I have found in ministry, I'll just tell you ministry. I found in ministry your most productive years in ministry when you're hired on as staff is the first year. And then after the first year, the majority of staff members, they slide into a comfort zone or a lazy zone. And I'm not saying that here, this is just what I've observed over the years. And then production slows down. And then it gets into almost like, this is who I am. Or, what is that verbiage that they use when people feel they deserve something when they don't? Entitlement. Well, this is a church, they won't let me go. Well, this is a church, they got to treat me right. And I agree with all of that, but how horrific to realize that you give 60% when you should be given 110%. You know it, God knows it, and yet you're unwilling to change it to get greater results. I don't know, I fear God more than that. I fear God more than that. I just know this. We're all going to give an account. And I want to do it right. I'm not perfect. Not a perfect person in any manner, shape, or form. But I know what my call is. And I know that I have to have the integrity to get the job done. Number three, perspective is everything. How you view it is how you live for it. Sometimes you got to actually change your perspective. Look at the issues and see them as the challenge and allow your passion to conquer it instead of being conquered. If you don't have challenges, that means you're not being tested. If you're not being tested, that means God don't trust you. If you don't pass your test, you know you got to take the test again. So God will only trust you to the level of testing you're willing to go through. Yet many leaders, when that issue comes up and they're confronted with that, they allow their passion to wane instead of feeding off the issue to feed the passion. You've got to be passionate enough to drive through the problem, not be stuck in the problem. And so what occurs is simply this, is a lot of folks will allow that issue to arrest them, and then they make excuses because they don't have the integrity to do 110% because they've lost, number one, their passion, and now they just have a job. And they just do what they got to do to keep it going. And that right there is criminal in the spirit realm. Because this is about souls. Amen? The last one, number 4, is get around others who inspire you. Passion breeds passion. So if your passion is struggling, you need to get around people that are passionate about what you're doing or what your passion was. Sometimes I repeat myself, but there are just some examples that are just so pertinent. And I remember telling you about that pastor who gave me a call, and he was running about 5 folk, 3 to 5. It was him, his wife, and an organist. I think it was 3. After 5 years, that's what they had. And he called me and he said, so I need to have lunch with you. I'll pay for it. I went down to Sayre, sat with him at the lunch table at the hospital where he worked. And he said, I need to know how you can have, I think we had over 100, how you have over 100 in this short period of time, yet I still have the same amount of people. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, when were you the happiest in ministry? He said, I loved doing children's ministry. I loved it. He said, I just couldn't wait to minister to them. I couldn't wait to love them. I couldn't wait to build them. He said, and you could feel it as he's talking. You could feel the, he was so excited. I said, so why are you a senior pastor? Well, he said, well, this is what we do. We're just, and I said, well, let me ask you this. If I offered you $60,000 tomorrow to be my children's pastor, what do you think? And his face lit up. He said, are you serious? I said, no. And I said, do you want to know why no? Because, sir, you have the wrong coat on. I said, if your passion was for children, but now you're senior pastoring, that is why you only have 3 people. Because you're not passionate over pastoring a church. You're passionate over children's ministry. But because you felt climbing the corporate ladder was more important than staying in your calling and your passion, you abandoned your passion, and now you're miserable and your wife is miserable. And you got no results. What you're not passionate about, you cannot create results with. You can have systems and structures, but with no passion, they become an empty hallway. The passion is what draws the people into the hallway to participate with those 2 things. So where is your passion? How do you personally keep your passion alive? If today you had to actually be honest with yourself, what gets you out of bed? What moves you? What gets you high? What, when you get done, it's just like, yes. And if it's nothing, woo, you're in trouble. Get on your face until you hear from God. If it's was something but isn't something now, you have to ask yourself, is God transitioning me? Because God might be transitioning you out of one passion to another passion. And number 3, if it's simply because you haven't fed it, then what are you feeding? If you're not feeding your passion, then what are you feeding? Usually it means nothing. You're placating your life, and you'll have regret. I've chosen, and I'll end with this. I've chosen in my life not to live with regret. That's a choice of mine. I can't make that for anybody else. I can't live that for anybody else. But I have chosen, I will not look back on the end of my life and say, man, if I had only. I have some passions. Ken was saying too that I love motorcycles. I want to go to Yellowstone again. And I'm gonna do it differently this time. I'm passionate about that. I'm saving money for that already. It's gonna cost me $5 or $6 grand. I'm good with that because I believe that's important to me. What's important to you, you invest in. I have a passion for it. I have a vision for it. I know how I want to get them going through Colorado this time. And I have to have the mission. How am I going to make it happen? I've got that set. For this house, for empowering pastors, I know where I'm going. And I had because I dealt with death, because I dealt with distraction, I had to step away for a little bit. But right now, baby, I'm really focused. I know where I'm going. I know where we're going. I'm not lost. I'm not diverted. I'm not distracted. Hang on for the ride. We're going to make this thing happen. And you are the mission because you are those puzzle pieces that make the puzzle come together. And now we've got to work together to make God's kingdom come, his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I was sharing with our small group last night, very financially prosperous people. And I reminded them that the reason they're prosperous is to fund the kingdom. Nothing wrong with having good stuff, nice stuff, love stuff. But the reason God's blessing them is to fund the kingdom. And if they lose that, then they lose the kingdom perspective of why they have wealth. And whether it's them or your department or what you're doing with your life and your business and your ministry, as you're watching this, you've got to ask yourself a question. And that is, does it still get me up in the morning? And if not, how do I rekindle it? You got to get around the right people to keep the fires burning. Amen? Does anybody have a question? Thank you very much for watching Empowering Pastors. You can go to our website, empoweringpastors.com. On there, we have many different options and opportunities for you. We have free training, but we also have our resources that are there. We have emotional quotient assessments. We have different assessments that are available for you and your team, as well as I want to remind you that you can also hire and bring me on as a coach, and I could help you and your church and your ministry excel to the next level.